Right, let's start here. President Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived in Washington ahead of his meeting with President Donald Trump on Wednesday. The meeting is aimed at resetting strategic relations with Washington after they broke down earlier this year when Trump took office.
The president is prepared for the moment. He's looking forward to it. He's highly enthused, and we're looking forward to a very successful meeting aimed at resetting the relationship between South Africa and the United States.
My people, what happens when the president of South Africa walks into the lion's den of Washington, D.C. to meet a man who's turned diplomacy into a game of power, pride, and unpredictability? This week, President Cyril Ramaphosa is heading into one of the most high-stakes meetings of his presidency, a face-to-face sit-down with none other than President Donald J. Trump. Yes, the president who says white South Africans are victims of a large-scale killing campaign. The president whose administration has cut aid, gave sanctuary to white farmers, fast-tracking their entry into the U.S. using refugee funds, and who all but accused South Africa of reverse apartheid. How do we get here? Why is this meeting happening now? And more importantly, what's at stake for South Africa, for the entire continent of Africa, for the United States, and for a global order that's shifting faster than most people realize? Because make no mistake, this meeting with Trump isn't just Ramaphosa or South Africa's challenge. It's a test for all of us watching to imagine a future where Africa leads confidently on the world stage, to demand the respect that it deserves, and to finally claim its seat at the table. So today we're breaking down the road to Washington, what led to this confrontation, what Ramaphosa is planning to bring to the table, what Trump is likely to throw back at him, and how South Africa can actually turn this showdown into a strategic win. This isn't just another diplomatic visit. This is a collision of ideologies, economic power plays, and geopolitical rebalancing, yes. And it could very well determine whether South Africa reclaims a seat at the global table or gets shoved further to the margins. We're going to break it all down. But first, a big welcome to all of our new subscribers and members. I am so glad you're here. And if you're watching and haven't joined us yet, please consider this your personal invitation, because here at Pan and Genius TV, we're not just building a channel. We're creating a global home for Black stories that are told with truth, with intention, and with power. And if that speaks to you, be sure to hit subscribe, tap the bell, drop a super thanks, or join our membership community where we go beyond the headlines with exclusive content, behind-the-scenes conversations, and a front row seat to the dialogue shaping our future. I'm particularly excited to bring you my Make Your Mark podcast, where I have intimate sit-down conversations with leaders, influencers, and trailblazers who are changing the game. These are people you want to know because they are literally shaping our world today and tomorrow. So join our membership community to be the first to know. All right, now let's break it down.
Trump, the president, as I speak to you right now, is in a meeting, with his advance team and the officials that are already here. Bumped into Parkstau just inside the hotel. He's also just arrived, not long before the president. He's the one who actually received the president. And he is also going to be a critical component when discussing then some of the deals, wanting to extend AGOA. And even if then it's not under the banner or the auspices of AGOA, some kind of continuation of the trade deals that are already in place between South Africa and the United States. And so in that regard, it would seem that trade is going to be key. But, of course, the optics and what could be on the horizon is something that we've all been talking about over the last couple of days. I want us to listen into what Vincent Magwenya said when he was asked about whether or not they anticipate any kind of humiliation being meted out at the hands of Trump to our president, given the fact that the same happened to Zelensky, and he too had also been invited to the Oval Office.
So how did we get here? For 3 months, President Trump has launched a full-scale diplomatic assault on South Africa. We're talking about a coordinated blitz, deep cuts to U.S. development aid, the dramatic expulsion of South Africa's ambassador to Washington, and a wave of aggressive policy moves like a 31% tariff hike on South African goods. Add that to the public rebukes of South Africa's stance on Israel and Iran, and you've got the makings of a full-blown diplomatic crisis. At the center of it all, a wild, baseless claim that the South African government is carrying out genocide against its white minority. And just last week, President Trump made it real, authorizing an airlift, yes, an actual airlift, of 59 white South Africans, claiming they were escaping racial persecution. This isn't just rhetoric, my people. These are actions with real consequences. Consequences for trade, for diplomacy, and for South Africa's global reputation. And through all of this, Cyril Ramaphosa has been trying to get a meeting, right? Not to grovel, but to de-escalate, to explain, to offer Trump reassurances, clarify land reform policy, and maybe, just maybe, entice him with a deal. One that keeps trade flowing, keeps investors calm, and keeps South Africa from becoming yet another pawn in Trump's international grievance game. But here's the thing. Nobody knows what version of Trump will show up to this meeting. Will it be the transactional deal maker who just wants to win? Or the ideological fire starter who feeds off confrontation? Because remember, this is Trump's first face-to-face with Ramaphosa. And he's already painted South Africa as a failed state sliding into racial chaos. That's the energy Ramaphosa is walking into. This isn't just diplomacy. This is crisis management on a global stage. And it didn't come out of nowhere. To understand how we got to this moment, you've got to rewind the tape to the roots of this tension. And we talked quite a lot about it here on the breakdown. The policy clash that lit the match. How do we get from cautious cooperation to genocide accusations and airlift? It all traces back to one word: land. In early 2025, President Ramaphosa pushed forward with a plan that had been simmering for years: land expropriation without compensation. The goal is to address South Africa's brutally unequal land ownership system, still largely untouched since the end of apartheid. Today, a disproportionately white minority still controls the majority of agricultural land, despite making up less than 10% of the population. Ramaphosa framed it as a restorative justice, but to Trump and his allies, especially on the far right, it was framed as something far more sinister: the beginning of a white genocide. Fox News lit the match. Conservative influencers ran with it, and Trump tweeted it into a global headline. Suddenly, South Africa wasn't just debating land reform, it was being cast as the next Zimbabwe. Investors got spooked, diplomats got quiet, and Trump, he leaned all the way in. This is the context behind the meeting. It's not just about trade or aid or diplomacy. It's about the global politics of race and who gets to control the narrative about justice, ownership, and power in a post-colonial society. And here's the thing. South Africa never claimed that it would seize land indiscriminately. There were consultations, legal reviews, even assurances that productive farms wouldn't be destroyed. But nuance doesn't trend. What trends is fear. What trends is outrage. And Trump knows exactly how to weaponize both. That's what Ramaphosa is walking into. A meeting framed not by facts, but by political fantasy. So what's he bringing to the table? And what's his strategy for diffusing the fire without backing down? We'll get into that next. But before that, why is Ramaphosa even entertaining this meeting? Why walk into the lion's den knowing full well that Trump has spent months painting South Africa as unstable, as violent, and anti-white? Simple. He needs the heat to come down, and fast. U.S. tariffs are already biting key South African industries. Development aid is drying up, and the PR fallout from Trump's accusations has investors skittish and foreign media running with half-baked narratives. Ramaphosa knows that if he doesn't reset the relationship, the damage could become permanent. He's betting that a one-on-one with Trump might shift the tone a little.
Focusing on opportunities that will underpin this resetting of the relationship, and we're looking forward to ironing out whatever issues of concern that there may be.
According to reports, he's coming with a few cards to play. Trade incentives, a possible bilateral deal or concessions to sweeten AGOA, whose future is uncertain, private assurances on land reform, framing it as lawful, limited, and economically sensible, a diplomatic reset, positioning South Africa as a stable, democratic partner in a volatile region. But make no mistake, this is a high-stakes gamble. Ramaphosa isn't just trying to win over Trump. He's trying to keep South Africa off the backlist of America's unpredictable foreign policy, and maybe even use the meeting to strengthen his position back home. Because remember, he's under pressure too, from the left pushing for faster land reform, from the right warning him not to cave to Western pressure, and from his own ANC party, where factional battles are always just a step away from boiling over. So this meeting is not just about diplomacy. It's really about survival, political, economic, and yes, symbolic. But the question remains, can you reason with Trump? Let's talk about what history tells us about how this could all go down. The meeting is set for Wednesday, behind closed doors, in a room that could decide the future of U.S.-South Africa relations. Ramaphosa will finally come face-to-face with Donald Trump. According to Reuters, South African officials have been quietly crafting a trade proposal aimed at one thing: resetting the relationship, cooling the tensions, reopening channels, and keeping South Africa in the good graces of an increasingly unpredictable White House. One of the more intriguing carrots? Elon Musk. That's right. Part of the pitch reportedly involves giving Musk's Tesla favorable tariff treatment on imports into South Africa, in exchange for Tesla building electric vehicle charging stations across the country. Clean energy infrastructure for better trade terms. But there's more.
Also, another question, Aledi, is around whether or not President Ramaphosa will meet with Elon Musk. You remember that in September last year, the two met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in September last year, and which also raised a lot of questions from opposition parties as to whether or not the president was pandering to business, in particular Elon Musk, whom we know has had the ear of Donald Trump. That relationship coming in question in recent times, many believing that he won't be in charge of Deutsche much longer, and that the anti-immigrant sentiment that has been affecting many other nationalities is actually now affecting him, and that some within the Trump administration are actually also saying that, well, Elon Musk, you too aren't American. So Starlink was something that the president and Musk had discussed briefly last year, but you'll know that our employment equity laws, and in particular the Electronic Communications Act, stipulate that you need to have at least 30% of BEE in order to obtain a license. So Magwenya saying that, well, they'll see. They're waiting to hear what the program is, and that's exactly what that briefing is about, the one that the president is set to be in right now. The program of the day then for tomorrow and Wednesday will be outlined to us a little later on.
Ramaphosa is also expected to raise the issue of Starlink, Musk's satellite internet project. The U.S. has been quietly pressuring countries to greenlight Starlink access, especially those feeling the sting of American tariffs. South Africa has so far held off, But Trump's inner circles sees this as a strategic ask, and Ramaphosa knows it could become a bargaining chip. But it's messy, my people. Musk, South African-born himself, recently accused the government of blocking Starlink because he's not black. A not so subtle swipe at South Africa's black economic empowerment rules, which require foreign-owned telecom companies to sell 30% of their local subsidiaries to historically disadvantaged groups. The reality? Starlink never even applied for a license. But hey, facts don't matter when you're playing the outrage game, does it? And now, what should have been a regulatory process is a geopolitical landmine. So here's Ramaphosa's challenge. He's trying to strike a deal that appeals to Trump's business instincts, Tesla, Starlink, trade access, without surrendering to political blackmail or undermining the hard-won principles of post-apartheid policy. It's a delicate dance. Offer too little, and Trump stays hostile. Offer too much, and Ramaphosa risks a domestic backlash and accusations of selling out national sovereignty for foreign approval. And you know everyone is watching. So again, the question becomes, can you reason with Trump? What can Ramaphosa expect when he steps into the Oval Office?
Discussion expected to take place, and there's also been lots to talk about in relation to how the president has prepared for this moment. Vincent Magwenya saying that he's not nervous at all. Listen to this.
No, he's not apprehensive at all. We don't think President Trump invited President Ramaphosa for that kind of treatment. There are issues of concern on the side of the U.S. and on our side as well. It is possible that those issues may trigger a rather robust discussion. That's all in the nature of these engagements. But we believe that the kind of courtesy that we are accustomed to, that heads of state extend to one another, will be in full display. No, the issues are different. President Ramaphosa is not President Zelensky. He's got his own style of engaging. He's got his own style of communicating. And so we cannot attribute that event to what may or may not happen.
Now, if there's one thing we know about Trump, is that his meetings with world leaders rarely follow traditional diplomatic scripts. Trump thrives on theatrics, loud declarations, headline-grabbing moments, and a carefully curated image of dominance. He often uses meetings not just to negotiate, but to score political points for his base home. Look at how he handled Zelensky's meeting just earlier this year. It was a public spectacle. Trump berated him, accusing Ukraine of being ungrateful and disrespectful, even suggesting Zelensky was gambling with World War III. The meeting ended abruptly, with Zelensky leaving without signing a planned minerals deal. Trump's style is transactional and personal. He rewards loyalty and deference and punishes criticism and perceived weakness. He comes to the table armed with a checklist of grievances, ready to publicly shame leaders he sees as adversaries. So for Ramaphosa, it's not just about the agenda. It's about managing the mood. He'll need to balance assertiveness with diplomacy, show strength, but avoid triggering Trump's unpredictable temper. And the kicker here is Trump doesn't always honor private agreements. Deals can be reversed with a tweet or abandoned with political wind shifts. Ramaphosa's challenge isn't just the meeting. It's navigating the chaos that follows. So how can Ramaphosa turn this high-stakes gamble into a strategic win? This isn't the time for Ramaphosa to play nice. South Africa is not just representing itself here. It's setting the tone for the entire continent. This meeting with Trump is a high-stakes power play. Ramaphosa can't afford to blink, soften, or make unnecessary concessions. Trump's style is aggressive and unpredictable, and he respects strength. If Ramaphosa approaches this as a negotiation where South Africa's interests are secondary, he'll lose before he even sits down. Instead, he needs to double down on defending South Africa's sovereignty and economic interests. That means no giveaways, no bending the knee. Take, for example, the rumored deal to offer Tesla favorable tariffs in exchange for EV infrastructure. That's a concession South Africa does not need to make. Elon Musk is a controversial figure here, let's be honest. And Ramaphosa should not be in a rush to make amends for Musk's false claims and missteps. South Africa must stand its ground on licensing and regulatory autonomy, no exceptions. His negotiation must be rooted in firm principles. South Africa's natural resources are strategic assets, not bargaining chips. Its policies on trade, technology, and foreign investment are about building the nation, not appeasing Trump's whims. If Trump wants to talk trade, fine. But Ramaphosa must insist on fair terms, not favors. If Trump pushes the Tesla tariff deal, Ramaphosa should say, we welcome investment that respects our laws and benefits our people. But South Africa's regulatory sovereignty is non-negotiable. And on Starlink licensing and Musk's claims, Ramaphosa needs to make it crystal clear. We will not allow misinformation or political pressure to dictate our telecommunications policies. Our law serves our nation's interest. That's it. But my people, more than that, Ramaphosa is sending a message. Africa is not here to be pushed around. This is a defining moment for the continent's leaders watching closely. If South Africa bows to pressure, it signals weakness to other African nations navigating their own relations with the U.S. Ramaphosa must lead with confidence, insist on reciprocity in trade and diplomatic respect, and demand that the U.S. treats South Africa as a partner, not a subordinate. So here we are, my people. A meeting that could reshape South Africa's future and maybe even shift Africa's place on the global stage. President Cyril Ramaphosa faces a test unlike any other, quite honestly. To stand his ground against a president who's already made clear he doesn't respect or trust South Africa. But this is more than just a diplomatic handshake or a trade negotiation. It's a chance for Africa to demand respect, assert its own agenda, and reject the old scripts of dependency and concession. Will Ramaphosa rise to the occasion, be tough, strategic, unyielding, and show the world that Africa is not a pawn, but a player? Or will this meeting mark a missed opportunity, a moment when pressure forced too much compromise, as we've seen over and over and over again, and the continent's voice was dimmed once again? Here's what I want you to think about. In a world where power often talks loudest, how can African leaders balance diplomacy with firmness and rewrite the rules on their own terms? What do you think Ramaphosa should do in this meeting or not do? Let me know in the comments. You know I'm in there with you. This meeting with Trump isn't just Ramaphosa's challenge. It's a test for all of us watching to imagine a future where Africa leads confidently on the world stage. And that, my people, is the real breakdown. So that's it for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe to our channel, share with someone who needs to know, and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face2faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.